Hi everybody, Jason here with the Landlord Launch, and I want to welcome you to our module on the property marketing process for rental properties. So we're going to jump right in here today and see what we have going on. Okay, so in this section what we're going to be covering is the explanation of what market rent is, define what the 3Ps are, just so you kind of have a sense of how those things affect market rent. Also define or determine how and what we can or should charge for our property, when to adjust that, how to analyze that, when to find out when it's working, when it's not working, and make those adjustments. Pricing thresholds, and then how to analyze your marketing and leasing to evaluate whether your market rent is set correctly. Okay, so first and foremost, why is it important to understand your market rent? So really it's because it affects how much money you make or leave on the table. It's to ensure that we are maximizing the potential income that you can get for that property. Like I said, I mean, if you go too high, you could increase your vacancy time. If you go too low, you could be leaving an extra money on the table. So the trick is really kind of find that balancing point, that sweet spot where it'll rent quickly and that you're not leaving too much on the table, especially compared to what other similar properties are renting for. Another thing it does is if you set your market rent correctly, it's going to help attract the right type of buyers. I know people where they say, well, we're getting $150 more than market rent. We can get that rented. And then when I look at the tenants that they have in place, a lot of times it'll be as a couple roommates or a couple families living together, or it'll be a situation maybe where their credit isn't the best and things along those lines. When you start to push like that, then you force your applicants and your tenants to really kind of stretch what they can do, which puts them in a more vulnerable position. Because remember, we don't only want obviously we want good tenants, we want to screen them and everything else, but we want to make sure they have the ability to afford what they are renting for. And somebody that's willing to pay more for a property that is where they can get cheaper somewhere else, that means we're probably lacking in our screening requirements, or there's some sort of hole there to where they're willing to try to pay a little more because something else isn't quite right. So another thing it does when we have that market rent in place, again, reduces vacancy, allows us to get it rented quickly, allows us to find somebody that's able to pay rent, and therefore we are able to pay our bills, whether it be our mortgage, taxes, insurance, utilities. If we're doing that, it allows us to pay our side of things. And then of course it adds value to the property, because remember, income property is a lot of times evaluated on the amount of income it is pulling in, especially multifamily. Not as much on the single family, although that definitely comes into play when you're trying to sell it to an investor. But on the multifamily, especially, the more income you generate, the more the net income is, the more value you add to that property. So market rent is the amount of money that a renter is willing to pay at that given time. Now this is something that changes. It changes on what's going on in the market, and let's just say that your house normally rents for $1,000, or you can rent your house for $1,000 in December. Well, come April or May, you may be able to rent your house for $1,200 or $1,300, because that's when people are looking to move, anywhere right before school ending all the way up to the point to right before school is beginning. Typically more of the leasing season, so your house may be more valuable at that point in time. So that market rent shifts and changes based on the conditions of the market at the time that it's available for you to lease at. Keep that in mind. That's also one of the reasons why I like to structure my leases to renew at certain periods of time. I do not like it when when a lease expiration comes up in October, November, December. Why? Because people really don't move as much in December and January as they do between May and I would say July, August, depending, again, based on that school year, the way that I see it at least. And market rent is largely kind of determined on the three P's, and for us, that's price, product, and placement. We'll kind of dive into that a little bit. It's not a super complicated topic, but it does affect it, and it is good to at least understand those basics there. So price, again, that is the rate that a renter is willing to pay to live in that home. How much money are they going to give? Of course, that's market rent. But it's not just rent. It could be deposits. It could be the additional fees. It could be if you have pet fees. What's your application fee? It's that total cost that it's going to take to get that person to agree to live in a home. So price. The good thing about price is that, well, I don't know if it's a good thing, but it is the one of the things that we can control in terms of if we're not getting traffic, if it's not renting, if something happens there, then we can always adjust that price to open it up to a different target market to potentially get a new pool of renters. So that's one of the things that we get to manipulate as we are trying to get our home rented. The next one is the product itself. So this is everything. This is your curb appeal. This is the property itself. This is where it's located, what amenities it has. That curb appeal is the first impression somebody has. And curb appeal, if you don't know what that is basically the way that it looks, or the way that it feels. Is the yard trim or the bushes trimmed up? Does it look nice? Is the paint job good? Is the paint colors, are they nice colors? Is it well maintained? It's all those things that make the home attractive. So product is another thing that we can do, we can control to a certain extent. Now because you can repaint, you can put new carpet in, you can do some landscaping work, things along those lines. And so if your home isn't renting and you're dead set on getting your $1,500 a month, well, if it's not renting, that means that what people are seeing, at least in their mind, is not worth paying $1,500. So one of the things you can do is you can start improving that home to make it more valuable, to make it worth that $1,500, or to try to get people to make it attractive enough for people to pay the rent that you actually want to get out of there. And there's actually a kind of a cost benefit scenario there, in terms of how much do you put in and how much can you get back out of it for rent, and should you make those improvements or should you just adjust the rent, things along those lines, which we'll touch on in this section as well. And the last thing here is the placement side of it. That's just simply where is the property located. It's the only thing you can do to control this is buy in a neighborhood that you want to be in. Look at the surrounding properties you're at, look at the regulations in that city, or if there's HOAs, what does that look like? Look at the crime rate in the area. And this is all at the, you have to control this, to affect this, you have to take these things into consideration when you purchase. Once you purchase, it is what it is, and you have to work around those things. So if you don't do your due diligence and you buy a property that you find out has a horrible school district and no one wants to be in, well, that's going to affect the rent that you can charge, and it's going to affect how much the cap is on that market rent, because there is a point, no matter how nice the home is, you can outprice the neighborhood and the location. So if you put, let's just say, let's just say, to make it easy, let's say you purchase a $100,000 house, all the other houses around you are $100,000 houses, you put $200,000 into it, and then you want to charge 3 times the amount of rent. You're probably not going to get it because the neighborhood doesn't actually support that. So placement is a big deal, but it's something that you're going to have to think about and take consideration at the point of purchase, and just make sure that you understand everything that goes into that, and make sure you understand how those things may potentially affect your market rent. One of the ways to do that is a market survey, of course, so you can see what other people in the neighborhood with similar products are able to rent that home for. And again, a market survey is something we will, of course, touch on in this marketing section as well. Okay, so this just kind of recapping what we just talked about a little bit, some of the considerations for Market rent is that one you can't change the placement. Again, that's something you have to take care of when you purchase it. Now, we can work with that price and that product, and there is a balance. Improving one, will it get you more? Will it not? There is a trade-off there, and you have to be kind of aware of the caps. I mean, if you're already able to get $1,000 out of your home a month, and all the other homes are renting for $1,000, and they're in good condition, if you dump $10,000 into a brand new kitchen, what is that payoff? I mean, if it gets you an extra $100 a month, okay, fine, take that $10,000, divide it by the 100, and figure out how many months it's going to take, or do the calculations and figure out how many months it's going to take for you to get that money back. And if it's 4 years, it may not be worth it. If it's 6 months or 8 months or maybe a year, maybe it is worth it at that point in time. But again, that's that kind of cost benefit analysis that you kind of have to do there. Now, when you do that, again, like we said, there are tools out there that help you zero in on kind of what that market's doing, what the rents are, kind of what the caps are. And then if it's not renting, we want to analyze that information and to figure out, can we adjust the market rent to get that place moving the way that we want it to. Now, there are some general strategies that can kind of help us determine, general and specific strategies that will help us determine what that market rent should be. There's some very kind of like rule of thumb ones, and then we can really kind of dial in quite a bit, when we start to get into the market survey. But one of them's the 1% rule. We have rent estimation services out there that'll give you a general idea of what other houses are renting for, at least as based on the data that they have coming in, and the data is only going to be good. Like on those estimation services, the data they give you is only going to be good as the comps that they have in their database. I personally like market surveys and the market survey worksheets, and that's because I can go get the information, I can get current information, I can actually drill in on, is that house, is that property truly a market comp, and then I can pick and choose the data that I'm pulling for to analyze a property, as opposed to the rent estimation services. You really don't know. Sometimes they'll give you a list of properties that they're comparing them to, but a lot of times, especially with the free stuff, it just says, okay, based on the market that you're in and the houses we have in our area, this is the range it's coming in at, and that could be good enough for you. I mean, if you're renting for $1,200 and you use a few of those free estimation services, and they all come back between $1,100 and $1,300, you're probably pretty good shape. But if they're all out of whack, then you really need to, or if you're not moving at that rate, then you need to go see what other properties are doing and really kind of dial that in more. And that's where the market survey and that survey worksheet kind of come in. So the 1% rule, really this is just one of those rule of thumb deals, and it actually kind of breaks down in some markets, because some markets it just especially if you're talking about California, sometimes it just doesn't work out very well. But generally speaking, if you can tell this pretty quick, because the 1% rule is basically 1% of the house value should be your monthly rental income. And again, it's just one of those quick rule of thumb deals, and you'll be able to tell very quickly based on your comps if it actually holds true, and it does in a lot of places. But this is when I'm scanning deals. This is where I'll kind of use this. I'll take a look at what the price is and just real quickly be like, okay, 1% rule should rent for somewhere around here. If it does this, does it make any sense at all? And if it's a complete just absolutely not, then I just keep on looking through the deals. If it's a maybe, then I'll take the next step and I'll start like drilling in more. I'll do market surveys, I'll look at the estimation services and really start to dial in so I can put my numbers together and see if that deal works for me or not. So use it where you can, but just be aware that it's not foolproof by any means. Okay, so your rent estimation, your internet listing services. Now, I actually have in the resource section you'll have a list of a handful, maybe a half dozen of these internet sites that actually just do like the free estimation services. But one of the things that I use and like to do for market surveys and even the just getting estimates and so forth is just go to the sites that list properties, rental properties. And, you know, again, here's some of them, but there's a lot of them out there. Zillow, Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace is a good one because, again, we're talking about local stuff here. Or you want to be able to localize your search results so that you can get information about the homes that are in your area and hopefully, you know, really drill in and get into like the neighborhood side of it. If you can drill into the neighborhood side and find like properties, the more similar properties you can find in neighborhoods that are like yours, the better off you are. But there is, again, in the resource section, I'll list off those actual rent estimation services, and then of course we have the kind of internet listing site cheat sheet that you'll have access to as well. So you have a handful of these more popular internet sites that have a lot larger database for you to kind of sift through. Now, the market survey is really where we kind of drill in, and you know, I do use the internet listing services to try to locate homes first and foremost, and most times that works, but if not, sometimes, you know, I'll have to kind of get a little creative. Maybe I'll see a property in the neighborhood that mine's in. Maybe I'll look at newspaper listing ads, although newspaper, and I say newspaper, it's usually the digital content to see if there's homes in my area, things along those lines. But it's used to, the market survey is used to find, locate, and identify properties that are similar to yours, and then capture the information about that property and then compare it to your property, which would be the subject property, and see how they stack up. And based on how it stacks up, you either increase or decrease, you know, the rents to kind of adjust for the things that the other properties do better or the things that your property does better. And this, the market survey kind of worksheet actually helps you document those types of things. But really what it allows us to do is find similar properties, adjust for the differences, and then determine if our market rent is within range, if we can maybe push it. So, I mean, let's say that you find your 3, 4, 5 comps, and the range is 11 to 1300, and you're sitting at about 1100. The comps really are really pretty comparable to the other comps, and they're all pushing 1275, 1300. Well, you should probably go on and raise your rent, because that just means you're leaving $100 to $200 a month on the table when you really don't have to be. Even if it adds another week or so to 2 weeks, just due to the competition of, if you're not renting quite as fast, you're still making a lot more money in the bigger scheme of things, the long run. So that's what the market survey really does for you. And we're going to go through, it'll be a separate video, but I'm actually going to do a step-by-step walkthrough of doing a market survey. So I'll grab a property, I'll use a market survey worksheet, we'll go through, we'll find comps, I'll show you how I adjust all that stuff. It's going to be a separate video, but we'll go step-by-step on that one if you're interested, or make sure to watch that so at the very least you know how to do that when you need to. Okay, getting into the market rent, how to analyze it, things to look for, kind of how to adjust those things is what we're going to be talking about here in this next little section. So how do we determine if market rent is set correctly? So in my opinion, in my experience and everything that I've seen, the traffic and activity that you're receiving on that property will determine if that is set correctly. I will look at this daily when a home goes on the market for me, when I put a home on the market, and I'll just watch this. And one of the things that I use is a traffic log, which we'll touch on in here as well, but that captures the calls that I'm getting. It captures you know, if I'm able to schedule tours, things along those lines, and it gives me a quick snapshot of the activity on that property. I look at this daily, and then I'll adjust if I'm getting no traffic, or if I'm getting traffic that doesn't lead to tours, or whatever the scenario may be. I'll adjust either market rents or maybe advertising or strategy about the first the first pass, I'd say about every 7 days, maybe 10 days. And then, I don't want to drag this out for 3 months as I'm tinkering around, but I need to get a little bit of real data coming out of the gate. So I give it about 7-10 days right out of the gate and see what kind of information I am getting based on the activity and the traffic, and then I make my adjustments from there. And when I do adjust, I don't like to take like $5 incremental steps. If I'm going to adjust the rent, I just jump down to the next threshold, because I think I've done this long enough to where I see that sometimes you can get some increased traffic by tinkering around the edges, but I know for sure that if I use the pricing thresholds, what it ends up doing is it opens up whole new markets, and the speed that I'm able to lease that home far makes up for, the extra $10 or $15 a month that I may lose by trying to really dial in and tinker around the edges there. So again, it's a trade-off deal. At the end of the day, I am trying to make as much money as possible in the course of a year. And I've seen the impact of vacancy loss really dig into that. So I'm kind of sensitive to that. That's what, and I understand, and most of you should understand as well, and you will over a long enough period of time, that could you get an extra $10? Yeah. But if it takes you an extra month to get that $10, is it worth it? No, it's not. It just isn't. When you do the math, it doesn't add up. So, and that's what I mean when I say tinkering around the edges there. Okay, so again, some of the things I look for is that, am I getting any calls? Is anybody calling me on the home? And if nobody's calling me on the home, then a couple things could be going on. One, my advertising's horrible. I'm not in the right places. Maybe my headline's off. I'm not capturing attention. Maybe my pictures are no good. We will go through that in the marketing section, of course. That's the first thing I look at. I want to check my marketing. I want to make sure that there's not something completely off. Revisit it, because when you put the stuff together, you get it out there and you post it. Sometimes when you come back later on and look at it, like, that just, I don't like that. So I'll look there just to make sure there's no obvious things jumping out at me. But then it's really, okay, so what they are seeing, what I'm asking for in price, is not attracting anybody for what they are seeing in the ad. So again, can I try to change the ad? Can I try to do some pictures that are different? Yeah, maybe. That may be one possible approach, but if not, then at that point in time, the product that I am advertising is not attracting people at the price that I'm advertising, so I'll do some adjustments on the price from there. I'm getting inquiries, but I'm not getting any tours. Same kind of deal, really. It's either one, maybe not as much as marketing, because the marketing side is doing its job and is generating those calls. But now what's happening is that's falling off somewhere in my response to them and being able to secure a location. So, one of the things I'll look at is, okay, what information am I giving them? Am I responding quick enough to them? Am I being friendly enough to them? Am I giving them too much information? I'll ask all those questions, but I've been doing this a while. So usually what it is for me these days is that the information they're getting is then now, once they get more information about the property and hear what I have to say and some of the descriptions and explanation, maybe where it's at, some of the terms, something in there is turning them off to the price that it's at. So once again, this is all price driven at this point. If we'll just use our $1,500 rental. If the things I'm explaining to them, like, that's not for me at that price. That's ultimately what's going on in their head, even if they're not directly expressing that to you. So again, it's a value and price trade-off, and what you have to do is, again, figure out what your market is telling you. Now, when I'm scheduling tours, so I get the inquiries, and they like the price and they like what I have to say, and I'm scheduling tours, but then I'm getting a lot of no-shows, people just not showing up. What is most likely happening here is they are driving by ahead of time. Maybe they're showing up earlier than you are. or maybe they drive by when you're there, but what they actually visibly see, either through the neighborhood, the location, the neighboring properties, the house itself, there is something when they actually physically see that. Again, it is not adding up to what they feel is a good value in their head. So again, the price isn't set right for what they are seeing, what they're experiencing. And if you're getting a high instances of no-shows, 10 to 1, this is what's happening. So, I mean, there's two things you can be doing here. One, you need to make the exterior of the property look nicer if you think that that's the case. I mean, again, if your place looks amazing and every other house, has half ripped down fencing and pit bulls and peeling paint and trash all over the streets and everything else, and it's just a bad neighborhood, you can make your house a mansion Taj Mahal, and people that are willing to pay that price aren't going to want to live in that neighborhood, so they're going to go on. So you're just going to have to understand that reality, and you're going to have to make some adjustments. And then the other thing is you can once again adjust price, because that neighborhood, what they're seeing obviously isn't, when compared to price, isn't enough to make them like, okay, yeah, I do want to see what's actually inside here. I do want to talk to this person. And there's at least a chance, if they end up showing up for their tour, that is them telling you that, yes, they can see themselves living there. If they don't show up, that is them driving it, hitting it, and saying, I cannot see myself living here, and I'm not going to pay this money for this product. So kind of keep those in mind. Again, you can mess with the house a little bit, the curb appeal, make it look a little better, make it look a little nicer. If that's not working, you're going to have to tinker around with the market rents at that point too. Property tours and applications, it's the same thing. They're not, except now they're not so much on the exterior, it's more something that's going on the interior. And this you can do more about, because with the exterior, a lot of times it's the neighborhood, it's the neighbors, it's maybe the school district, condition of the streets. But if they are showing up and they're going into the actual home, they're fine with where it's at. They're fine with the school district. They're fine with the condition of the neighborhood. They're fine with the way that your house looks on the exterior, because is attractive enough for them to stop and get out of their car and keep that appointment. But there's something that's happening on the inside that, again, is triggering them to make that determination that what you have, what this place offers, is not worth it to them to pay that amount. Now, some of that just may be, it is not good for their particular setup. So, if it's just one person or two or three people, it's just not a good fit. I mean, if they have this huge sectional couch and huge audio video equipment set up, and you have a 10 by 10 living room, it just physically isn't right for them and what they have going on. But, if you show 5 people, 6 people, 10 people, and you get 0 applications, something's off. Within 5 tours, usually I will have at least 1 application. Even if the application's no good, I'll have an application at least. If you're not getting them with 5 or 10 tours and there's something off, there's something in your home, take an honest assessment. Heck, call them back. Say, hey, listen, I really want to tell you thank you for checking the place out, and be honest with them. Say, I'm having a little bit of trouble renting a home, and I've showed a lot of people. I was hoping you would give me some feedback on why this wasn't a good fit for you, so I can improve this for other people, so I can get this thing rented. Most people love to give their opinion, so you will have no problem getting some honest feedback at that point, especially if they don't think that you're just trying to sell them back into the home. And by being honest and saying, listen, I've had a lot of tours, this isn't landing for me, I need to get this rented, could you please help me and give me your opinion? They'll tell you, they'll dial it in for you, they'll get you that information. So that's another thing that you can do to kind of figure out what's what. And it could be that the paint color is just horrible, or the carpet smells funny, or whatever it may be, or they don't like vinyl, and maybe 10 people don't like the linoleum vinyl. Okay, great. Make a determination. Do you want to spend the money to replace those things, or do you want to reduce the rent? What's going to make you more money in the long term? How long is it going to take you to get that money back? All of those things, and then figure out what your plan of action is, execute, start showing it again, and get the thing rented. And that's really kind of how we dial that in, using some of the traffic and the information we get out of that traffic analysis. Yeah, this is just kind of going back over what we were just talking about. It's that whole cost benefit analysis of the rent versus the property updates. Again, the important part is getting accurate information and then making a determination what the best approach is for you. And for some of us, there's a pride of ownership thing, and if pride of ownership isn't the motivation, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, for some people, rental property is strictly an investment, and they want to put as little in and get as much back out of it, and that is perfectly fine too. It just doesn't matter. The point being is that for some people, it's like, well, if people don't like this carpet, well then I'm just going to do it. Yeah, I won't get my money back for 3 years, but it doesn't matter. I want to make sure it's a nice home for people. I want to invest that money in there. I want to get the rents I want out of here, and I want it to rent quick. And if those are all things you want to do, that's perfectly acceptable. Then if you're the type of person that's like, nope, I don't want to put the carpet in, I can reduce my rent by $50 a month, I can get this thing rented, and I can stretch this out as long. I don't really care about the carpet and putting new carpet in. I'll find somebody that they don't care either. That's perfectly acceptable too. So again, it's all how you want to approach your investment, how you want to deal with that stuff, on which way you actually go with those decisions. So when it comes to adjusting rents, now we were talking earlier, and I was talking about kind of adjusting around the edges there, playing with the edges. I personally like thresholds. I'm going to talk about thresholds. If you don't like threshold, that's perfectly fine. I'm just giving you some perspectives here. For me, the way that I see it is that with any price range, and we'll just use the ones that are listed here, let's say between $13.75 and $13.95, you're going to find this many people that are out there looking for a home. That's their budget, and they say, okay, if it's under $13.95, I can afford it, and I would really like something nice, so this is my range. This is the group of people that you're going to attract within that, and it'll bleed over a little bit in both ways, but primarily speaking, there's a segment of the market that is interested in looking for homes in that range. So when I determine that for whatever reasons I want to adjust rents, what I like to do is I like to get to the next threshold so that I can open that up for a new group of people that previously were not considering the home. So let's just say in this case, there is a group of people that their max was $13.75. So they were not looking at $1 over $13.75. So then I'm going to open that up, and when I make my first adjustment, I'm going to go to that $13.75 threshold. And that's my approach to tinkering around the edges, is $25 increments, because again, that 95, 75, 50, and 25 for me in the markets I've worked in have been effective. And you see this in retail pricing too, $12.95, $12.99, whatever those are, they do it too. And the reason being is because it works. I mean, $12.99 is going to be a lot more attractive than $1,300. Is it that big of a difference? No. But there's a reason they do that. And so I just kind of follow suit. Now, if I really want to get this thing moving quick, if I'm like, man, I've gotten zero traffic, I don't want to mess around with this, and I want to open this thing up and get it rented, and it's at $13.95, I have in the past said, okay, no, I'm okay with the money. I push too hard. $13.25. I just want to get the thing rented, because I make the determination if I lose $75 a month but get this thing rented in a week, I'm going to make more money in the course of the next 12 months to 2 years, as opposed to, waiting a week, going to $13.75, maybe waiting another 3-4 days, dropping to $13.50, another 4 or 5 days, $13.25. I get it rented, then there's a 30-day notice, and before I know it, 2 months down the road, I get I still get my $13.25, or I get it rented, but I've lost so much in vacancy loss. So there are times, but again, that determination is based on what I'm seeing in the market at that point in time, what my situation is at that time, how many of the other properties I have occupied, what my cash flow situation. There's a lot that goes into that, and you kind of have to balance that out for yourself on your personal situation. But generally speaking, those thresholds work because they open up a new market for you, and that's why I personally like to use them. Okay, so quick section recap here as we've been talking about market rent. Market rent, again, is what a potential renter is willing to pay for a property at any given time. And market rent and price, I've been kind of using a little interchangeably because I also, because there is the market rent and I guess the price as I am using it and talking about here, I also kind of incorporate, what those other fees are. Is there pet animal charges? Is there, what's the application fee? Are you charging non-refundable cleaning fees, deposits? All of those things is the overall package. The market rent's what's advertised as attracting people in, but I guess the price in this scenario would be everything, the whole package, and what does that look like when we are, marketing and trying to get people interested in the property. Again, keep in mind those 3 Ps: price, product, placement, and then use them to your advantage, adjust what you can. Zero in on that market rent and the price by using those tools like the 1% rule, rent estimators, market surveys, and then of course analyzing the traffic that you're getting out of that so you can kind of get that adjusted quickly to get your home rented. Because at the end of the day, that is the ultimate goal, is to get the home occupied to a qualified applicant who's going to pay rent and take care of your home. So and then also, like with the 3 Ps we were just talking about, you can adjust the property issues as well if that makes more sense for you financially. Okay, so I think this is a good place to stop here. We're coming up on a 40-minute mark, and there was a lot in there to absorb. Next time when we come back for our next session, we are going to talk about prepping your rental property, the marketing side of it. So again, the headlines, some different approaches on that, the property description, different ways we can structure that. Believe it or not, there's some formulas out there that I have in here that I'll show you and you can use at least as a starting point. We're going to talk about pictures, we're going to talk about floor plans, we're going to talk about the video tours, the different type of tours. I think the different type of tours maybe a little bit later, but we'll get into all of that. In the marketing preparation, what we're really looking at is getting that home ready to attract people, to get that phone ringing, to set up those property tours. So this is Jason with Landlord Launch, and thank you for watching today. Make sure to join us for our weekly Q&A session if you're part of the Landlord Launch program. And that's it. That's what I got for today. So thank you, and we will see you next time.